have that growth mindset, you have a belief that you can grow and change and learn. And what that means is that when you're going out there and you're doing the things that your job requires of you, or that it's expected of you, or that your supervisor has asked you to do, if it doesn't go right the first time, that doesn't mean it was the wrong thing to do. It's a matter of, oh, what did I learn from that experience? How can I do it differently? How can I try again?
Hello and welcome to another episode of Leads to Growth. I am your host, Chris McCoy, and very excited to be here from my parents' camper, actually, in Michigan right now, with a little makeshift studio. So I got a little bounce and a little skip in our jump here today, but we're gonna have some fun with it because I've got a great guest. I've got a dear friend and just a really brilliant and amazing person, social psychologist and business partner, Benah Parker. Thanks for joining us, Benah.
Hey, nice to see you, Chris.
Great to see you. So Benah has worked with companies, Fortune 500 companies. She's worked with top C-level officials all over, top military officials, companies like Amazon, State Farm, United Healthcare, Vanguard. But we're not talking about all that today. Benah is not only a personal coach, an individual coach for a lot of people, but she's our chief research officer at the National Association of Sales Professionals and the Truesome Companies. So we are just very blessed to have her, and I'm feeling very blessed to bring her to y'all. So Benah, thanks for being here.
Absolutely. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. So Benah, first off, I want to start off. Benah's got a great story and history of where she comes from and who, and just as a person, which I know a lot about. But Benah, what got you into social psychology? This is a brilliant thing. We talk about mindset all the time, but I don't imagine that was all back when you got started. What got you on this path of the degree and then evolved it to where you are today?
Yeah, I mean, I think social psychology is really fascinating because it's everywhere around us. Social psychology is essentially, the way I like to frame it is, it's the study of how the group impacts the individual. So everything from your cultural background, gender, the environments that you find yourself in, the people you surround yourself with, how the group impacts the individual, but then also how the individual impacts the group. So, I mean, from a very young age, I started doing like leadership training, and I think I was 14, freshman year in high school. I just like had a passion for leadership development. But how the individual impacts the group is everything from leadership, communication, influence. Social psychology is really, I mean, basically anybody who's in marketing, they're looking at social psychology. Anybody who's, looking from the big picture issues that affect us, racism, sexism, misogyny, all these different types of things, the underlying psychology behind it all is social psychology. It's what's out there in the world that impacts how we view the world, how we interpret it, the attributions we make, the things that we believe, even the perceptions that we have. You see the meme where there's a number on the ground and somebody looking on one side says it's a 6 and somebody looking on the other side says it's a 9, and neither one is wrong. And that's social psychology. It's all about how you perceive and interact with the world impacts the opportunities you see, the choices you make, and how you show up. And there are so many things that we think we control, but the environment around us impacts all of it. So I can just geek out and talk about psychology all day long.
I love it because it is one of those things that seems to impact in being involved in everything, but it's almost like an invisible layer that if you're not truly aware of, you don't even know it exists, but it affects everything that you do.
Yeah. When I was teaching a class at Arizona State, ASU is where I got my PhD, and I was teaching an undergraduate class there. One of the assignments I gave my students was go walk around campus and just note where you see social psychology in the world, because everything from the sign about, don't walk on these plants to like inviting people in, all of these things are parts of social psychology. So it's all around us.
I absolutely love it. And I think, it reminds me of a quote I say often on this podcast. It's, what you're aware of, you can change, and what you're unaware of changes you. And that's never more relevant than in social psychology. And especially in this world of sales and B2B sales, where your outreach is all being interpreted through these biases, these patterns, and these different experiences, and not being aware of them. I understand why so many people struggle with sales early on, because they don't know what they don't know. I just want to help people, right? But why does everybody keep saying no to me? Why do they don't understand the way that their email gets read? They don't put themselves in that perspective and really go through, all right, what did this person do today? How many emails is this person responding to today? What do they look at when they see the emails? What do they feel like when they see these emails? So like the idea that I really think social psychology is so intertwined in sales and understanding your buyer
Yes.
in such a beautiful way, that it, it's almost a shame that it's not taught early on in the sales process.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with you.
How do so we talk, all right, so the value of this process, and we talk how do companies leverage social psychology and building out their sales process? Or how do they leverage social psychology, maybe not even building out their sales process, but identifying strengths or weaknesses?
I think that's an interesting question, because I think most organizations are never going to think of it from that lens of using social psychology. And I think that's where NASP kind of bridges that gap, because so much of what we've created in training and our certification programs, it's based on the science. It's based on the psychology of how do you impact the people, your audience, not through manipulation, but through influence, and through how do you influence people to get where you want to go. But as far as an organization building out their sales teams, it's a matter of, at the leadership level, everything about having a vision that's going to inspire people. Because then you're creating that culture that's going to influence people to create their own reasons, their own internal motivation for wanting to do the work, for wanting to get the product or the service or the solution or the software or whatever it is that they're actually selling. They have to have their own internal, they don't have to, but the more that they have their own internal motivation, their own internal beliefs about the value that they're offering, and that comes from the top down. If you have leaders that are creating that inspired vision, then you have that culture, you have that environment that's doing that external support for the person to create their internal reasons to go get the job done, to go take that tool or resource or solution out to the people, really coming from a place of value, instead of just coming like, hey, I have this thing, do you want to buy it? It's, hey, like, you have this problem, I have the solution, I think it's a great fit, do you have a minute for me to tell you why? I don't know if that answered the question, but that's kind of my thought is, I think it's less about, a company thinking, well, how do we use psychology, and more about what's the psychology that's already there, and how can we help motivate our teams to show up at the highest level.
Yeah, and you know what, you're right. I think that there's two sides of this psychology, right? Because there's the understanding the psychology and the biases that are going through your buyer's perspective, right? And then there are understanding the how the social psychology affects your sellers and what state and what mindset that they show up in, right? And so as a sales leader, I think it's very interesting, right? Because there's two sides of the coin. One, I need to understand where my customers are at. I can't influence that and I can't change that. That just is, right? I can leverage that or meet them where they're at using my sales process. And a lot of that is then getting really, like you said, then influencing my sales team to be able to understand that, to have that awareness so that they're approaching it in the best state of mind. So this is a growth mindset that we talk about, right? So what are some characteristics of a growth mindset? What are, I mean, because like a lot of people think, someone has it or they don't have it. Like, so what are some things that are characteristics, but maybe are something that we can control?
Yeah, I love that, because I think the way you said that some people, you either have a growth mindset or you don't. Well, that's a very fixed mindset approach to a growth mindset. So, I mean, a growth mindset it's a thing that everybody can develop. You might have one in different areas of your life, but essentially what a growth mindset is going to give you is, or when you have that growth mindset, you have a belief that you can grow and change and learn. And what that means is that when you're going out there and you're doing the things that your job requires of you, or that it's expected of you, or that your supervisor has asked you to do, if it doesn't go right the first time, that doesn't mean it was the wrong thing to do. It's a matter of, oh, what did I learn from that experience? How can I do it differently? How can I try again? Because like you said, we don't control what our audience comes to the conversation with. We don't control what kind of day our buyers had. We don't control, did they have a flat tire, stub their toe on the way to answer the phone. We don't control their mood, how it shows up. Those are things out of our reach. And when you keep showing up consistently with that growth mindset, that everything becomes an opportunity to keep improving. And from the organizational perspective, if the organization is really creating that culture where failure is allowed, failure for whatever that definition might be in that setting, that becomes that opportunity for growth. It's something to learn from. I always like to tell people the only time you've ever failed is when you stop trying. Like you get feedback and you adjust, you try again, but it's never really a failure until you give up. And sometimes a failure is simply like, okay, that path didn't work. We're not giving up on the goal. It's time to find another path. So I use the term.
I love that. No, that's beautiful, because the idea is it's almost how we respond to challenges, right? It's how we respond and how we react. I think a lot is affects what a growth mindset is, right? It's do we just, it goes back to, again, our beliefs. Do our beliefs change when something happens? And how do we stay and keep that internal place? And I'm going to go back to something too. We said some people have it and some people, there's the 80-20 rule, right? The top 20% are doing 80% of the work, and they're the ones that the other 80% are just kind of funneling through a lot of sales company, like just kind of being replaced and regurgitated. I'm a sales leader. What are some, so you said one thing that I like, that creating a safe environment for people to fail. That's one thing I can do as a sales leader. What are some other things as a sales leader I can do to create that safe environment, to create an environment or a culture that's conducive, or that builds, or that curates these growth mindsets?
I think a lot of that, from the sales leader perspective, to create that environment that those growth mindsets become the norm, become the standard, is really kind of modeling that behavior. As a leader, not being afraid to point out to your team, like, hey, we went after this initiative and it didn't pan out the way we thought. We're going to learn from it and pivot. The more as a leader that you're able to own that growth, to model that growth, to show that makes it safer for your team. When you see somebody on your team who acknowledges, hey, I did this thing and it fell flat, great. We're so proud of you for getting out there and taking that risk. And what do we learn as a team? What are the next best practices from that learning? That's a type of thing that creates that psychological safety within the organization.
I love that too, because like there's the one thing as like, oh, everybody, oh yeah, sure, just be the example, right? But it's not just be the example. I think it's creating the opportunities for the lesson, right? Almost creating the practice. Like if a sales leader does that on a ginormous, very important decision, people may not see it the same way. But if he does it on something small and he does it on a regular basis and he makes a habit of it and he makes a practice of it, habit and practice, right?
You said my favorite word there. Because we know the path to success, it's not about doing one thing right and winning. If there's not like one giant leap that gets you across the finish line, it's about the behaviors that you do consistently every day. It's about creating the habits that set you up for success over and over and over.
Yeah, that really is an interesting perspective, because you said earlier, it's quitting that tells the story, right? When you quit, that's the one that says, "Oh, I failed." When failure is just in reality, just another step towards the finish line. It is just a part of the process as long as you don't quit. And then how do you not quit? Well, you, as a sales leader, how do you create opportunities for people to do that? Is one, you lead it yourself. But two, you create an environment where that's encouraged. In B2B sales, Benah, a lot of people are moving from traditional marketing, which is just a spray and pray, like, all right, BDRs, SDRs, go out there and make a bunch of calls and harass a bunch of people. And two of them are not going to hate you and they might end up being customers one day, like it's just crazy. Yeah. So now we're going, all right,
turn and burn.
Yeah, turn and burn. And now we're shifting more towards the account-based marketing, which is really focusing on someone that we want to work with, identifying the buying group, and then really targeting those buyer personas. In that way, I think you're really setting up salespeople to have more of an opportunity because you know that you can help this person you fine-tuned it. I'm not just saying I can help you because you're a person that's on my list. I'm saying I can believe I can help you because I know that we focused on your account. We know all the details about you. I've taken time to understand you as a client and as a customer. And so now when I'm reaching out to you, hearing no is a little bit different because I've already done the research and time and effort in knowing who you are, knowing that I can help you. So I think this account-based marketing is more of a culture that curates relationship building, long-term visioning, but also leveraging social psychology because it's not a numbers game anymore. It's a relationships game.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about kind of creating those partnerships. It's like, I'm not just your salesperson. I'm the person here who's going to help you solve these issues that you have. It's kind of that whole approach, the consultative sales. It's like, I'm not just, like you said, I'm familiar with your account. I know what challenges you've had. I see things that you've tried in the past because we have this longer term relationship. And that's where you're able to get in on that psychology side. And I mean, the more you know that person, you're going to know what some of their drivers and concerns and fears are that you can address proactively. The way that, if you have a new solution, what do I have to do to frame this so that they don't go in and think, oh, that's something I've already tried before. You go in with a pre-frame, you go in with I'm familiar that you did this and this and this. And now here's something else that it might sound similar, but here's how it's different to meet your specific needs. When you have that relationship, that's going to be night and day difference from, the turn and burn approach.
Absolutely. And then I think it's so funny too, because we've been talking growth mindset. Like I know you've been preaching it from the rafters and the rooftops for years. And now that people got so washed up so quickly with this automation of robots with no personalization, I think we're going back to that human effect, that human is interaction, which is so important, which makes what we teach so valuable because you can't, with the whole world the way that it is, with kids running around in multiple roles and families, like managing your state of mind and your state of being to be present for that other person is so important. Look at it in a relationship. And that's the same thing that a B2B sale is. It's a relationship. So what are some ways that, look, we know we work together at NASP. So what are some ways that we, through our programs, help people cultivate that practice or those innate tools to maintain that state, to be present for a customer and to do all the things that they know that they should do, Benah, because they got a list of them. They read it in a book. They know all the things they got to do. It's just, but now I need money. My mom's sick. So my wife's yelling at me. My husband's doing this. The kids are doing that. And all these things. What are some things that we do to help people up that resilience?
Yeah. I mean, I think I have two answers for that because there's a short and quick. Yeah, there's two answers. There's a short and quick answer of like things you can do in the moment to prepare you for those conversations when the world around you is melting down. I mean, like even an hour ago before I got on a call, I was like, oh, I have a minute. I can run to the kitchen and grab a drink out of the fridge, and dropped a sparkling water. It splattered everywhere. And I was like, I got to be on a call in 2 minutes. Like, how do I take care of this? It's like, how do I manage this knowing that the floor is going to be sticky and the floor will still be sticky? I can go out there and clean it. So there are things you can do in the moment to prepare. And then there's also longer term pieces, these habits that you're building. So the quick one in the moment, I'll say it's making sure that you're creating what we call your ultimate performance state. It's your UPS. When you are getting into your, as you manage your state, you don't want to go answer the phone when you're, kids screaming or, you don't start a conversation when there are all these things going on. But it's managing your state. And there's three things that we teach that you actually have control over in this moment. It's your focus, your self-talk, and your physical state. It's your physiology, because we know that when you control these three things, you're going to be showing up in the way that you want to show up. So before you pick up that phone, before you dial in on that Zoom, what are you focused on? The outcome of that conversation. What is your self-talk? Is this, in a moment that you're like, oh God, I have to do another call and this person's going to hate it and da 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 da. Because if that's your self-talk, you're going to show up in a way that person knows you don't believe in the conversation. You're not there to provide value. You're just checking a box. But then also your physiology, whether you're on camera or not. I mean, if you're doing a call like this, you can try to sound all peppy, but I mean, it's going to come out in your voice. But I mean, if you're sitting up, your shoulders back, you're focused on your outcomes, those three things, your focus, your self-talk, your physiology, it can interrupt your other patterns. It can get you in this state to do the things that you need to do, but also hopefully that you want to do because you believe in what you're doing. So that's kind of the in the moment. I think the longer term piece, and one of the things that we talk about, with our CPSL, our Certified Professional Sales Leader, our CPSP program, the Certified Professional Salesperson, all of the programs through NASP is really focusing on the beliefs. And this is one that when I talk to people, like it can sound kind of woo-woo. You're like, okay, well, I mean, I believe the truth, gravity is a thing. Sure. Yes, of course. I'm not going to say that you can.
Laws are real, baby.
Yeah. Some of these things are real. But from the social psychological side, we know that the things we believe impact how we show up. There's a whole study on multiple studies, but there's a whole body of research on what's called self-efficacy. And these are your beliefs about yourself. The more you believe in your ability to do something, that impacts how you show up to do it. Like if you believe something's impossible, then you're not going to show up and give it your all because you have a core belief that there's no way to be successful. So why would you put all of your effort into it? But if you believe that you're capable, if you believe that this is the right solution, if you believe that this is the right conversation relationship, then you're going to show up with that belief. Your self-efficacy in that solution, in that interaction is going to be really high. You're going to show up differently. You're going to see different opportunities. You're going to perceive the other person's interactions in a different way. You literally have a different lens for interpreting that entire conversation and interaction. So a lot of what we do at NASP with these programs is help people build the beliefs they need to create the identity of the person who is successful as a sales leader, as a sales professional, in your relationships, in your career. The way that you manage your own beliefs about your capability, your flexibility, all of these things, it changes how you show up. Some people think it sounds really woo-woo. The law of attraction is, if you want something, you're going to bring it into your life. But the psychological truth behind it is, if your beliefs are aligned with this identity, this person that you are becoming and creating through your growth, then you are going to see those opportunities for yourself more than if you are showing up, full of doubt, completely externally motivated. You're only doing these things because the boss is telling you have to do it and you don't really care. You're only worried about your own outcomes. That's a very different way to show up for every one of these conversations that you may have, whether it's with your team, with coworkers, with prospects, with your leadership. The beliefs you have about how the value you're bringing to that interaction and what your outcomes are, it's going to have a massive impact on you actually achieving those outcomes. So longer term, it's building the beliefs and the habits and the identity of that successful person. Shorter term, it's much more that focus, that self-talk, that physiology piece.
I absolutely love that. Those three things. What are the three things that you can control when you have the attitude in you, but you're not in that place? Well, first off, the first thing is, before we even get to the three, is the awareness and the acknowledgement and the grace to give yourself that it's okay you don't believe today in the moment. It's okay that you don't feel in the perfect state. Don't lie to yourself and say you are, and then get the result you don't want, and then just feel bad about it and feel guilty. Have the awareness and take the time. I think that's the most important thing, and have the grace in it. And if you're not in the right place and you can't get yourself into a state, which, look, it takes some time to learn this process, right? It takes time to build these habits. But if you're not in the state, don't take the call. I've canceled calls before 5 to 10 minutes before the call, and I hate that. It drives me nuts when people do that. I value people's time so much, but I knew that I wasn't there. I wasn't going to be able to bring value in that moment. My state was not right. And I was I was okay with acknowledging that it wasn't, and wanting the best for them in that call, and just letting the call go and rescheduling it. And so I think that's so important. And what are the three things you can control is your self-talk, your focus, and your physiology, your body language, right? Put the shoulders back, go for a walk. It's a huge thing. You've got a big call. If you're going to sit down and make some calls, go for a walk. That's a great way to get your physiology going.
Get blood flowing. It's important.
Get the blood flowing. Yeah, get some nature. It's healthy for our eyes and our mindset. This the self-talk. And the thing I love about what you said is the self-talk is, you said the long term is the beliefs, right? Well, the only way Napoleon Hill says to change a belief is through constant repetition of an affirmation, he says, in Think and Grow Rich. And what is an affirmation? It's just self-talk, right? Why do we believe all the negative things about us? Because we've been saying them to ourselves for years, right? So start saying the positive thing over and over again, and eventually you'll believe it. But have the awareness to understand that, hey, I don't believe I'm a good salesperson today. I don't believe people want to buy this product today, but I want to believe. So how do you believe something you don't normally believe? Is you do that affirmation. And then the last one is the focus. And you brought up the law of attraction. And I think you said something very beautiful. You said, well, it's not just that, your beliefs have to be aligned. I can't just be thinking about money and not believing I'm worthy of it, and I'll get it, right? That's what people mostly do. Oh, I don't believe it's possible, but I think about money every day and I don't have it. So your beliefs aren't aligned, right, Benah? So there's a difference between lack and abundance and thinking, having, and so I just think what you said is just so beautiful. And I wanted to make sure that people assess your beliefs, y'all. What do you believe? If you're not getting the results that you want, look at where it all starts. And listen to the social psychologist. Start with beliefs. What are your beliefs? I love that.
I would echo that and say that the voice you've heard the most often in your life is your own. The voice in your head that's the voice you hear all the time, and it is the most powerful. So a lot of people think, oh, well, if I set the bar low, I won't disappoint myself or anybody else. But if you set the bar low, then that's all you're striving for. Like, okay, great, you set the bar low and you get it. Is that really your goal? It's about believing, changing those affirmations. Again, people accuse me of being Pollyanna sometimes, because I'm like, I might come across as always positive. Doesn't mean I don't have hard days, but those affirmations make a huge difference. Absolutely.
And you know what? I love this concept too, this conversation of, it's just frou-frou, right? It's not frou-frou. If you look at the science and the numbers, if you look at the way that our eyes work, and we've had this discussion, I'm not telling you anything you don't know, but if you look at the way your eyes work, our eyes, the only information they send back to our brain is information that is incongruent, that does not match the illusion which our brain has already created. So our brain creates the movie, and then whatever information doesn't match, it then sends to our brain to change. So if you're focused on seeing what you want to see, you're going to find it more. It is just the way that our brains work. There's too much going on for us to send every little bit of information. So it's only looking for the incongruencies. So it's not looking for something that aligns with, like when you get an argument with somebody, if your belief is that your vision will still happen, that you're still going to be happy and in love, right? Then you don't see this as the end all be all of arguments. You see this as, hey, we disagree. It's okay. We'll fight again on something, but we move forward, right? But when your story is this isn't going to work, well, that argument's going to have a lot more stank on it.
Yeah. We absolutely, as humans, we all have a confirmation bias. We're all looking to prove that we're right. Our confirmation bias is, and the thing is, the more you know about it, it's easy to go, oh no, I'm familiar with the confirmation bias, so I don't do that. That's the most.
Tell me more about the confirmation bias. I don't think people really understand how that works. Can you tell us a little bit more about how that works?
Yeah. So confirmation bias is simply the fact that we find what we expect to find. If we believe that, the world is horrible, then when you open up the news and you read a headline, you're going to read it with the worst possible. Maybe that's not a great example because headlines are designed to be kind of sensational. And when you go out into the world, you're going to find the evidence that supports the beliefs you already have.
That's it.
If you believe that the world is out to get you,
the belief that you already have. That's what you. Yes, because we don't want to be proven wrong. Nobody wants to find out that they're wrong.
No, we're always going to believe that, oh, this thing I have, look, that aligns with my beliefs, that aligns with my beliefs, that aligns with my beliefs. No matter how much evidence is out there, we can discount that. We come up with reasons why either we don't see it at all, or we don't trust it, we don't believe it because of the source or the timing or any of that other stuff.
Couldn't be more evident than it is today in today's politics with Republican and Democrats.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was trying to not go political with it, but yes, we all have.
And listen,
everybody has it.
I don't believe it doesn't matter what side you're on. I believe it's exactly the same on both sides. I believe, that both sides see what they want to see now. And it's hard because the connection, and this is the same with sales. This goes right back to sales. See what you want to see. Choose what you want to see ahead of time. Benah started this whole thing off with creating a vision. Benah, with confirmation bias being present, with the law of focus and all these things, how important is it for us as B2B salespeople, or just salespeople in general, to create, think, and visualize our outcome before we actually do something and take on a task?
It is absolutely critical. And I love that you kind of put that out there, because knowing all of this stuff about the psychology of social psychology, like how we interact and the impact that has, especially when it comes to sales, it allows you to use it to your advantage. So, and as much as we know self-efficacy is important, well, then choose the beliefs about the impact you're going to have. As much as we know, like people talk about goal setting. There's all sorts of research out there. It's like, oh, goal setting, you write it down, you make it public, you get an accountability partner. All of those things help you achieve goals. And the step that a lot of people miss, what the research suggests is really important, is having the vision. If you have a vision about what it is you're trying to create, that right there makes your goals more attainable. Have a vision for what the outcome looks like and feels like, and what does my day look like? How do I spend my time when I'm truly living the vision of myself as a successful sales leader? What does my day look like? How much time am I spending, managing my team versus working with clients versus creating the strategy for the business? What is it that matters the most to me? When you have that vision and an emotional attachment to it, that makes all of your goals that much more likely to happen.
I absolutely love that too, and I think that's another word that people will throw away in the fruit category basket sometime too, right? A vision of, you just need a vision. Oh, you're gonna make a vision board, like I do this when people are like you're not like
dismissive.
Not making fun. Yeah, exactly, dismissive. But the idea is, vision sounds fruit because yes, you have a lot of these people who have an excessive amount of positivity but don't really do the work. So they kind of give some of these things a bad name and a bad image sometimes. I've heard it like, was it toxic positivity?
Toxic positivity.
Yeah, I've heard this concept before. But the idea of a vision is just a story. It's just the story you tell yourself. So when Benah said earlier, failure is only when you accept failure as that's the end, right? So what that means is that your vision doesn't exceed this day. It doesn't exceed this accomplishment. It doesn't. Your vision said you're not going to succeed. That's what your vision. If you accept failure, you're confirming that your vision was failure. Am I right, Benah?
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of my favorite sayings is if you don't have a happy ending, then we're not at the ending. Like if we haven't, we're just not at the end yet.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's it. So your story is, oh no, I the phone, I called the person, they just said yes very easily. I'm now a multimillionaire, and it was just that easy. Like, people don't see the road of this beautiful journey of growth and learning and failures and bruised knees and getting lost and lack of understanding until you get to the beautiful, fruits of your labor. We see so many people get the fruits before they do the labor, and they don't appreciate them. They have lottery syndrome, like the NFL, the NBA, and they've not earned the identity of the person that deserves the wealth and the value. And I think you speak of resilience so often in our conversations, and I think all of these things, the resilience, the awareness, all of these beautiful elements, they all come back to what is the story that you're telling. And if you're telling a story of success, of accomplishment through a journey, through some some challenges, it's an easier pill to swallow when life happens. And you know, and I think that it's just such a beautiful place to start. Yeah, you maybe not believe yet, but if you can tell the story, you may not believe it's possible today, but if you tell the story that you're going to get there, you're believing it's possible one day.
Yeah. And we get to choose those stories. And that's one of those things that on the one hand, you know, you tell people, well, what do you actually have control over? You only have control over two things. It's the stories what you make things mean, the stories you tell yourself about the interaction, the conversation, what that person was really thinking when they said this. That's a story you're making up. You control that story. You get to decide what that story is. And then you get to choose how you respond to it. And it's respond, not react, because reactions are instantaneous. Reactions are reflexes in those emotions, but that response, the way you choose to respond to that story, you have control over that. And I always tell people, you know, when I'm working with executives and leaders, I tell people, like, you really don't control all that. We love to think we have control over everything around us. It makes us feel powerful and certain. And when you think, okay, these are the only two things you control, on the one hand, it can feel kind of like, oh, well, I don't have control over anything. But then you realize that those two things impact everything. That control you have is so powerful, because when you control that story, you control how you show up and what you believe and what you're going to see and how realistic you decide it is. I mean, that's a ton that you have control over.
It really is. And it's so important what you said there, the reaction to the pro action, right? And I'm gonna tie it back in with Einstein says you can never solve the same problem that you created with the same mindset that you created it with. And I think it's just so interesting that everything in these life comes back down to your belief, to because I believe XYZ. My belief only shifts when so-and-so did XYZ. And then, well, now my belief changed in the moment, right? But that's not my belief. My belief, if you look at the long term of my belief is still the same. It's in that moment my beliefs change. Why? Because emotions dive in. Emotions pull all these old references out, all these old feelings out, and they attack you in a reactive place. And one, it's so important to be able to be a place that you can maintain an internal state of mind, right? That mindset, that growth mindset that we talked about. And I believe where the growth mindset is, it reminds us is that you're never going to be in the same state your entire life. Just give it up. Life is going to happen. Things are going to change, but leave some breadcrumbs behind. Be able to find your state, be able to not lose your state too long, and be able to be aware that when your state is off, that you're aware of it. And I think this is awareness alone. So when you can learn a skill set, you can learn a strategy. That's awesome. But that doesn't affect everything. And you still have to implement it. The awareness of social psychology allows you to understand and see everything from a different perspective.
Especially yourself.
Especially yourself. And I just think this is just so invaluable. Benah, I love this. All right, so we have this information. We've mentioned a fun word that starts with an H earlier, ends with an it's, and so we as we learn all this information, how do we make the changes? How do we yeah, great. I know this, but it doesn't change how I feel when my boss yells at me or when the person hangs up the phone on me. How do I get there? How do I get to that place where it? Huh?
It's all about the habits. It's about setting yourself up, doing those little things, those little actions every day that move you closer and closer towards your goal. It's creating those systems that reinforce the behaviors that get you to your outcomes. So yeah, somebody hangs up on you. Well, it's my habit to then go complain about it to the person sitting next to me and go walk to the break room and have a cookie and, you know, make myself feel better and complain about it. Or is my habit to go, cool, that wasn't the right person. Let's pick it up and try again. Like, what is the habit that you're reinforcing over time? And that doesn't mean we don't have our down moments. We don't take our moments of release. We absolutely do. But those habits are about the little things, just being that commitment and consistency towards creating those pieces that are going to move you forward.
So I realized that I got this bad habit. Every time somebody says no, all I want to do is go grab a handful of peanut M&Ms and get a coffee and complain to somebody. How do I break the habit? How do I stop doing this? How do I mean, like, because I get it. Like, oftentimes I'll be like, at the end of the day, I'm like, should have, but like, it's just at the moment, it takes me over sometimes. And listen, I'm asking you a question I kind of know the answer to, but I get the call all the time. Like, yeah, I know I should do those other things, but it's in the moment, it's hard. How do I do it? Yeah.
So our habits, I mean, habits are tricky because most of the time when you've created a habit, whether it was intentional or not, I almost never use the phrase, I never call anything a bad habit because the habits that you've created served a purpose at some time. Everything you created a habit around, whether you're aware of that habit or not, it has served you in creating some level of survival or approval or some of those basic core emotional needs that we all have that don't even reach our awareness that drive us. So actually getting rid of something, a habit that I won't call bad, but it's a habit that no longer serves you. It's a habit that does not get you towards your goal. Once you've discovered, you recognize that, first of all, awareness is the first step. Recognizing, oh, this is something like, I don't even think about this anymore. This is just a thing I do. This ends up eating up a lot of my day. Like you said, go and grab the peanuts, complaining to somebody, going to whatever, or M&Ms, I guess, the peanut M&Ms.
Yeah,
really good. It's being aware that this is a thing that you're doing necessarily without necessarily thinking about it. So awareness of the habit is the first step. Second step is, well, I might be in the middle of the habit and go, why am I doing this? I don't even want these M&Ms. Like, I'm complaining to this person, but I don't even know if I believe what I'm saying. I'm just doing it because it's there. So sometimes that awareness happens in the moment. And then it's like, how do you interrupt it? So it's awareness, it's interrupting it. It's like, and there are things you can do.
The tools for interrupting already, right?
That focus, that physiology and self-talk, those are great tools to interrupt a pattern. I could be reaching for those M&Ms and be like, nope. It's not just something unexpected. Like, there's a physical piece of it. There's that self-talk. There's that, I'm like, that's not what I want. That's not for me in this moment. That was a habit that I don't need to do.
I love that.
Interrupting it. It's awareness, it's interrupting. And a lot of times habits don't necessarily want to just be gotten rid of. It's about replacing it. Like, there's something there. It's like, what else can I do that would serve me? Yes. I mean, like, maybe I'm really frustrated. I've gotten a whole bunch of no's and I would go talk to somebody or go grab a snack. What can I do instead that would serve me? Maybe it's walking outside and taking a few deep breaths. Maybe I'm still getting away from the desk. Maybe that getting away from the desk is a needed part of that habit, but I can go do something more productive. Like, I mean, even if it's just checking on my kid and say, how's your day going? Or send somebody a picture of a puppy. Like, if there's something that gets my focus back on, okay, that was a lot of no, that was a lot of, that felt bad. I need to get up from this moment. Can I go do, a 2-minute meditation outside in nature, or take, go run some stairs, get my blood pumping in a different way? Like, there are different things you can do to replace that habit that will then serve you getting focused back on your goal.
I love it.
So it's not just a matter of like, oh, I have a bad habit I have to get rid of. Well, first you have to be aware of it, and then you have to interrupt it, and then you replace it with something else.
So, all right, y'all. So you heard her. She's told us at the very beginning, right? You got to start with a vision, right? And when you start with a vision, I think this is what provides that awareness, Benah. Right. So once I have the vision, here's the results and the things here's what I want to be. Here's the results I want to have. Then I look at my results. Now I'm not getting those results. All right. Now this provides an awareness. Why am I not getting these results? Well, because my prospecting is not going well, because my follow through is not going well. Okay. Why aren't these things going well? Well, because the peanut M&M bit. Right. Now I've got an awareness of a pattern that's between me and my vision. So now I have the vision, which is the oomph to do something about it, right? I gotta have a why, my purpose, right? Because I want to feed my family, I want to provide a better life for my family, I want to move out of this trailer. That's a nice camper, I'm just joking. But that's my why. And then identify the habits that aren't working, right? And not the bad habits. I love when Benah said that they're the habits that got us here, but they're not the ones that are going to get us to the next level. And then what are the habits I want to replace them with? You know, and these are 3 of our steps to 6 steps to lasting change, which follows with then supporting you with working, as Benah will tell you, your imagination then next, right? And then identifying role models that you do references from those calculations. And these are how all of our programs at NASP are put together, and our other companies as well. And that's why we're so excited to have Benah on to really to talk about the elements of a lot of these things that are fruit, but are scientifically proven. And when you adopt these small little pieces in the way that Benah said, with commitment and consistency, a little bit every day, right? You don't get there overnight. It's just a little bit every day. And sometimes
there is no there. Yeah. There's no magical salary amount or no magical job or title. There's no magical person that's going to make everything perfect in your life. There's no there. And that's part of the growth mindset. It's getting to that level and going, and who else do I want to become? And what else do I want to learn? And how else do I want to give back? And where else do I want to add value? There's never a moment that we stop growing or learning.
I absolutely love that. And that's why we're on Leads to Growth right now, yo. All right, listen, we're gonna wrap it up. Me and the dog's gonna go here. So Benah, thank you so much for being here. I really the Benah and I family, I could talk to Benah all day long, every day. We've got the same sense of humor, and we enjoy each other's company. It is
dangerous.
And I'm very blessed to call her a friend, to have these conversations. These conversations are important, y'all. We talk about this things that exist, but then oftentimes we dismiss them into the frou land, and we wash them away with, oh no, I have to go back to reality. But this is the reality. The social psychology, the biases, these things all exist. Your habits and patterns, they exist. The less you address them or are aware of them, the more they're changing you on a daily basis. If you want different results, you've got to take different action. It's not harder, it's just different. And if you do it a little bit by little bit, we can give you a hand with that. You can get to the place that you want to be, and we've got a whole team to support you. And Benah, love you so much. Thank you for being here. I promise we're going to do this again soon. I'm going to have you back again in a couple months. I think we could have kept this conversation going for another hour.
Thanks, Chris. Love you.
I love you too. All right, y'all. Make sure that you put all the stars down low. Make sure you subscribe if you aren't already subscribed, and put the stars down low. And don't forget to put the stars down low and review us. We'll see you on the next episode, y'all. That's Leads to Growth.